Hello learners, welcome to the course Migrated Women's Literature. Our today's topic is based on the discussion of The Terrorist at My Table. It is a poem written by Imtiaz Dharkar. Let us see how Imtiaz Dharkar has painted and created a totally new vision towards different issues of the world. The Terrorist at My Table. The poem was published in 2006. It highlights the political issues around the world, and it also talks about different issues related to immigrants. At the same time, it also deals with the general perception of the problems of the world, and in this poem Imtiaz Dharkar has presented the issues of identity, conflict, and the impact of the clashes that are happening around the world, and the impact of all the global terrorism on human beings. Let us discuss the poem in detail. In the very first stanza, Imtiaz Dharkar writes, I slice sentences to turn them into onions. On this chopping board, they seem more organized, as if with a little effort it could begin to understand their shape. At my back, the news is the same as usual. A train blown up, hostages taken, outside in Pollock shields, the rain. So in this poem, the poet has combined the small domestic works with the international issues. While choosing words, she is very innovative, because while writing she chooses such words that could take a shape, and these are the shapes that design her sentences. These designs can speak in the mind of the readers, and these designs create some real images in the mind of the readers. When we read this, the first line in this stanza, I slice sentences to turn them into onions. On this chopping board, they seem more organized, as if with a little effort it could begin to understand their shapes. She says that when she is chopping onion on a chopping board in her kitchen, these onion slices are taking different shapes, as if these are the shapes that are organized in their own way. These are the shapes that are systematically linked and connected with each other, as if these shapes want to speak something, they want to create a kind of a picture. So here the shapes that onion is taking up after being cut, these are the shapes which Imtiaz Dharkar says are so awake, as if they would join themselves together and create a totally new picture, which would be different from their previous role, that is being an onion. So simply using something that is not directly linked with the creation of images or pictures, that as in this stanza, here the symbol of onion is used to talk about the shapes, the images that arise in our minds after listening to some specific news, after coming to know about certain happening anywhere in the world. So here she says that onions are taking different shapes, and while she is busy doing her domestic works, the news channel is broadcasting the usual news of accidents, kidnapping and deaths. She listens to the news. It is there that a train is blown up somewhere, some hostages are taken, and along with all these unpleasant and terrifying news, there is also one about the rain in the Pollock Shields, Scotland. Here in the last lines of the stanza, she is creating a picture where she says that on the daily basis we come across many disturbing news, but at the same time somewhere something good, something soothing happens, which helps humans maintain their sanity. Let's see the next stanza. Here Imtiaz Dharkar writes, I go upstairs, come down, I go to the kitchen. When the things are in their place, they look less difficult. I cut and chop, I don't need to see, I don't need to see through onion tears. My own hand power the knife. So while the TV channel is showing such news of accidents or kidnapping, etc., the poet goes upstairs. She is very much disturbed. She goes upstairs and then she comes down. She enters her kitchen, comes out of the kitchen, goes to some other place, again comes to the kitchen, and then she again takes up the work of chopping the onion. So in a way, she resumes her work of chopping the onions, and then she sees through the tears. As is known, whenever we chop onions, there are tears in our eyes because of the tingling effect of onions smell. So she sees through those tears that are there in her eyes. Here, the tears are used as a symbol. These are symbolic of the pain that we experience whenever we come across such heart-wrenching events, or the pain that we feel, though indirectly, as we are not the direct victim of those mishappenings, but we feel the pain when others are suffering. So the pain that arises in our hearts and makes us realize the helplessness and makes us feel the troubles of other people, and also gives us the realization that we cannot change the situation. So when the poet says that it is the pain that makes us realize our helplessness because we cannot change the situation, at the same time she gives a message that though we cannot change everything, yet a small effort matters. We should be available for other human beings. We should learn the lesson of humanity and spread this lesson of humanity. We should help each other. Coming back to the poem, she writes, I cut and chop, I don't need to see. When the poet says, I cut and chop, I don't need to see, my own hand gives power the knife. So she says, my own hand moves the knife. I don't need to see it, what the knife is doing, because my hand is controlling that knife. It is the act that makes us habitual of doing something. When we become habitual of doing a certain things, after a certain practice, we become apt in doing something, and then we can do that thing very easily, very comfortably. So she says we become habitual of doing something, be it a household chore or something else, we can do it even without seeing it, even without looking at it. Here the poet does not need to see, because the events are taking place in a series. The chopping of onion is taking place in a series. She is chopping one slice, then the other, then the other, then the other. In this way, these slices are being cut in a series. So she does not need to look at that onion and the knife again and again. So here Imtiaz Dharkar says the events that take place in a series, as if these are the tools. The events become tools. Events in our real lives, those events become tools. For example, as we have utensils in our kitchens, we know the role of each utensil, we know the use of each utensil, and we arrange them systematically. In the same way, the daily happenings, the daily events of our lives are arranged systematically, they keep on happening. And she also says, it is the hand that extends power to the knife, knife that is a tool to chop the onion, it is not the knife that chops the onion, but the hand that powers that knife, because it is the hand that uses the knife. So here knife and onion, both the words are used as two different symbols. Onion refers to the killings of humans. Onion refers to the atrocities happening around us, globally, around the world. One human being doing wrong to the other human being. So Imtiaz Dharkar says, knife that is symbolic of a weapon, and it can be any weapon. It is not the weapon which is responsible for cutting onion, it is not the weapon which is responsible for killing people, but it is another human who is giving power to that weapon. That human being is responsible for killing humanity. So here in this stanza, Imtiaz Dharkar is giving a message that humans themselves are the enemies of humanity. They are killing each other. In this way, they are the enemies of humanity. So she says that it is the intention which acts sometimes positively and sometimes negatively. When we act, when we do something with a positive intention, we come forward to save humanity. When we do something with a wrong intention or in a different circumstance or unknowingly or without understanding anything, we do something negatively. That's what Imtiaz Dharkar has written in this stanza. Let us take another stanza. Here she says, here is the food, I put it on the table. The tablecloth is fine cut work sent from home. Beneath it, Gaza is a spreading watermark. Here are the facts, fine as onion rings, the same ones can come chopped or sliced. So now she has shifted her gaze from that chopping board to some other things, and now she has come out of the kitchen and now she is laying the table. So she shifts her gaze towards the table and puts food on it. She notices that fine tablecloth, that good fine work of that tablecloth. There is this cut work on the tablecloth. The tablecloth which is from her homeland, which is from her motherland. And the cutwork design of this tablecloth reminds her of Gaza. Now in this stanza we find a reference to the ongoing Israel and Palestine conflict. She says the firings and attacks there in Gaza are alive in front of her eyes when she looks at that tablecloth which has that cutwork design. The cuts that are there in the tablecloth, though those cuts are example of handicraft, those are a sort of work on that tablecloth, but she finds those cuts resembling with the Gaza, with the land of Gaza, with the place that is broken, that is cut here and there. So a cloth which can be seen as a woven piece that shows completeness and oneness. And this piece of cloth refers to the oneness or the unity of the world. Here Imtiaz Dharkar is showing this tablecloth as a world. Symbolically it is referring to the world where these are different cut marks that are designs. Those can be symbolic of the map where we see there are different countries in this world map, and then she notices one specific place where she finds blood, deaths, killings, and that she says that it makes her recall Gaza. So this piece of cloth which has cut work, which is symbolic of breaking apart. It symbolizes the broken parts, the wars and the strife amongst people around the globe, divide us apart and thus cut us, just like the cut work of this tablecloth. Then she writes, shoes, kitchens, onions can be left behind, but at a price. Knowledge is something you can choose to give away, but giving and taking leave a stain. Who gave the gift of Palestine? Cut this, chop this delicate thing, hallowed in onion skin. So in this next stanza, the poet says that the ailing parts of the world, the parts that are suffering, the parts where people are fighting with each other, the trauma that is faced by so many humans. So she says that the ailing parts of the world, the trauma of the fellow people and the wars, all these things are real. These are not imaginary concepts. These are not imagination of anyone. But these are real. The pain is real, the trauma is real, the suffering is real. And then she says, though these things are real, yet we turn our faces away from these realities. But averting our gaze from dark sides of the world would not change the situation. The situation would remain as it actually is. And then again she uses the symbol of onion rings. She says, as these onion rings finally chopped, having a shape, are lying still on my chopping board. In the same way, there are chopped limbs, cut body parts, sliced bodies are lying on the ground, are lying in the battlefield. So here the chopped onion symbolically is used to refer to the body parts of human beings, dead bodies, as those dead bodies are lying in the ground in the battlefield. And the poet says, shoes, kitchens, onions can be left behind, but at a price. We can leave all those things aside. We can keep all those works aside. But we cannot keep the feelings, we cannot keep the pain, we cannot keep the emotions that get mixed with the daily routine of the life, as well as that get mixed with the experiences of oneself as well as others. So the feelings that if mingled with the good thoughts would give a good lesson to others. Whereas if those feelings get mingled with the bitterness, certainly they would leave behind something harsh. That's what she writes, but at a price. When we leave behind anything, that thing has a price. So this price means when we ignore something that is happening around us, it means that some or the other way we will have to pay a price. That's why she says all those inhumane acts that are happening around us, around the world, those should not be ignored. We should come forward as humans to protect each other. And knowledge is something you can choose to give away, but giving and taking leave a stain. You can teach the younger generations, but it is your choice what you want to teach, what you want to give them. Knowledge is something that we pass on to our younger generations. We teach them, we tell them good things, but if we teach them hatred, it would certainly leave a stain on their young minds. That would remain always. That is why teaching unity, love and good thoughts is the most important thing, as said by the poet in this stanza. In this same stanza, towards the end of the stanza, she presents a question. She asks a question. Who gave the gift of Palestine? who is responsible for the situation there? It is fellow humans only. Then she says, soft body of onion. That soft body, that delicately chopped onion rings are resembling the delicate human bodies, even children and women killed brutally. Then Imtiaz Dharkar questions. She questions the humanity, she questions the society, she questions the entire world. She asks, who is responsible for such heart-rending cries of humanity? She shows sympathy towards the people of Palestine in this poem. Now, towards the end of the poem, we get a reference to the title of the poem also, The Terrorist at My Table. She says that it is circumstances who force people to act in a certain way. Killing someone is something that is wrong, and terrorism or a terrorist is always associated with the killing. But as she says, it is circumstances. So again coming to the concept that, again coming to the question that she has presented in these stanzas, in these last two stanzas, where she says who is responsible for the gift of Palestine. She says that sometimes circumstances are responsible. Still, we are humans, so we should not forget our duties and we should teach the message of humanity. In this poem, we see that she writes, your generosity turns my hands to knives, the tablecloth to fire outside. On the face of Jerusalem, I feel the rain. Your generosity, the acts, those are wrong, but done behind the mask of so-called correct behavior. So she says, your generosity turns my hands to knives. It is the acts of some people who has given knives in the hands of other people, who has given weapons in the hands of other people. It means that in this last stanza we see that she clearly says that one human is killing the other. We are responsible for killing humanity, we as humans. And then she says that she has put the tablecloth to fire. The burning of tablecloth symbolizes the burning of the humanity around the globe. Then in the last lines, she writes, on the face of Jerusalem I feel the rain. The rain makes her feel comforted. It seems as if it is raining there in Jerusalem to wash away the impurities of the world. Now here in the last line we find that a reference is given to Christ, who died to wash away the sins of mankind. Similarly, this heavenly rain in Jerusalem would wash away the pain, would wash away the sufferings from the world. Let us have a look at the themes that are presented in this poem. We find the theme of displacement, we find the theme of cultural heritage, we find the theme of global conflicts, and also knowledge and generosity. So, while talking about knowledge and generosity, Imtiaz Dharkar says when you pass on the knowledge to some other generation, to other people, if this knowledge is full of wrong information or hatred, it only divides the world into parts, into sections. Whereas, when the knowledge is full of love, it unites the world. So she says the knowledge that is wrong, that divides the world, it is very costly because the cost is paid by the humans only. The price it asks for is the price not only paid by one person but by the entire humanity. So she also says that when she talks about the theme of knowledge and generosity, she says that the hatred stains the hearts and souls, and love, unity, compassion, brotherhood can remove those stains from the heart of the world. Identity and displacement. She talks about the attacks, she talks about the war which is one of the biggest reasons behind the displacement of human beings. The conflict amongst people from different regions, different religions, communities has been presented in this poem, and that conflict also is one of the reasons behind displacing people. So the bruised soul of humanity is presented in this poem, where the identity is perceived by the society in various ways. As we know that identity is framed and formed. So here this identity of one specific part of the world, one specific community of the world, one specific individual of the world can be perceived by the society, by the world in various ways. And it is the perception which creates identity, which forms identity, which frames identity. So here the issue of identity is also presented in this poem, and then she talks about the theme of humanity and says averting our gaze from the bruises of the world, from the bruises and wounds of the humanity would not solve the situation. Rather, it would worsen the condition, it would make it cold, frozen and devoid of feelings. So instead of averting the gaze, we should work for unity and work for global peace. This poem concludes with a message of peace and humanity. This poem concludes with a hope, with a ray of hope, where Imtiaz Dharkar talks about the rain in Jerusalem. She is very hopeful that one day all the impurities of the world would be washed away and there would be peace and love everywhere around the world. People would live with each other, people would help each other, and the morality, moral values, ethical values would be primary in the world, and we will work for humanity. That is what she has shown in this poem. At the same time, she has used certain symbols also, like we have different symbols in this poem. For example, the symbol of onion we come across here in this poem, and the symbol of tablecloth that we had talked about, the cut work on the tablecloth. Along with that, there are other symbols, as when we look at towards the last stanzas, last two stanzas, we find that she has mentioned certain things. So these are daily objects of life. Those are also used as symbols here. And we find the symbol of rain also. Rain here in this poem is used as a symbol of purity, as a symbol of washing away all the sins. Rain is also used as a symbol of calm, as a symbol of peace, the calmness from all sufferings, the soothing element. So these were some of the important symbols that Imtiaz Dharkar has talked about, and the poem leaves a lasting impact on the minds of the readers, and it says that every individual should come forward to maintain the peace and harmony in this world. By averting our gaze from the problems of the world, we would not be solving any issue, rather we would be worsening the condition. That's all for today. Thank you so much. We would connect again in some other lecture. Thank you.